So, as you can see from the article that's on my screen, we're going to talk about the UK and their Digital ID Act of 2029, or whatever the heck they want to call it. We'll call it the BRIC card for right now. It's a very interesting read, a very interesting topic to talk about. And I got to say, I'm not surprised that this is happening. Not surprised one bit. So let's go ahead and just kind of go over the article. It says here that Keir Starmer, who is a civil rights lawyer, I think before he got into politics, I could be wrong on that. I had to look it up. He wants to require every adult in the United Kingdom to have a digital ID in order to work in the country. And it's going to be mandatory by 2029. So the immediate question that comes to my mind is, aren't we all supposed to have IDs to begin with? I mean, last time I checked, I have a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, you can go down to the DMV and get an ID card. You know, I know that there are some people out there that can't do those things, but last time I checked, IDs were, the big R word. R-ism. Whatever happened to that? Anyways, we'll continue on. So they're going to use this. It's going to consult an app-based system containing the person's name, photo, birth date, nationality, and residency status, rather than checking physical IDs or national insurance numbers, which is the equivalent of their of our Social Security number. I understand that, but what's the point? It just seems like you're asking for that stuff, but with extra steps anyways. In order to have an ID, you have to have those things and bring it down to the DMV and present it in order to get any form of ID anyways. I know that there are some people, in fact, I'm dealing with it with some of the homeless men that I've been working with. They don't have things like birth certificates and social security cards. And with the way that the law currently works right now, you only get 10 social security cards before they won't send you any more. And I don't know how any of that works, if they're going to replace or give you a new number after I don't know how any of that works. Anyways, so this proposal is part of the government's latest bid to tackle illegal immigration, which, how about not letting them in to begin with, if that's the issue? Like, you're going to let them in and then say, okay, now everybody needs a new ID card. Like, come on. Really? I don't know. It seemed predictable to me. It seemed very predictable that where all this was going is, hey, we're going to cause a problem and then give you the fix, which I know that's kind of the whole theory behind problem reaction solution, which the problem was illegal immigration. The reaction was everybody's upset about it now, so here's the solution. It was so plainly obvious where all this was going. And now we're here. We're here at this moment. Anyways, so I'm sorry. It's just, did anyone think that this was going to be different? Did anybody think it was going to be different? Because I knew where this was going. So this article talks about a national tracking system, and this isn't from Yahoo News specifically. This is actually from Reason, by Elizabeth Nolan Brown, just in case anybody's wondering. And as always, I'll always post the article down below, but oh shoot, I just lost my place here. So they're talking about, some kind of interaction, which this has been the whole point with cash. The whole grand conspiracy about a cashless society is the government's always going to be involved in some point. It says right here, according to the ACLU, which I don't like that I'm on the same side as the ACLU on this one, but sure. Digital driver's license and other sorts of digital IDs are being built so that the system notifies the government every time an identity card is used, given a bird's eye view of when, where, and to whom people are showing their identity. So basically, anytime you activate the app, it's going to ping you, and the government's going to say, okay, so you were here. Every single freaking time. I can make arguments for how this is good for law enforcement. Let's say, a guy commits a crime and then he gets pulled over down the street and, shows his ID. Well, now you got an exact time and place of where he was. The guy who's only accused. I mean, okay, I can make that argument, but at the same time, why is it anybody's business the moment I whip out my ID and show it to someone? Same thing with cash. What is it anybody's business to, give them a dollar or something, and what, I use Western Union to send money. Just a little window into my personal life. I use it to send money, and they want a fee every single time, which, I'm using their business, fine, whatever. Who's to say that if I don't give a kid $1, so he can go get a soda pop, which I know soda's like $2.50 now, but that's neither here nor there. Who's to say that the government says, okay, well, you give him $1, now you also are going to get charged 9 cents to use that function, when before it was just like, here's $1, and this gets into the whole, money is not really American money. It's controlled by the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. Again, that's a discussion for another time. We won't get into that now. The question that I have for everyone is, where does it stop? Now we're talking about having to purchase, a device like this guy, and having us use it at all times, because I know that there was an article years ago, I'll try and find it if I can find it, where some people, younger people about my age or younger, were actually dumping their cell phones, and they were finding out how hard it was to do certain things without cell phones. So basically, that's where we're at right now. Is everything that you need to do as a person, as a human, in these first world countries are going to require a cell phone, which means you have to have a cell phone plan. And if you don't have a cell phone plan that doesn't have an internet connection, how can you use your ID? Unless it's one of those, sorry, I got the hiccups. One of those things where you have like an offline system, and then the moment it connects to a network, then it uploads all that information, which that's ridiculous that I have to spend my money I apologize for that. That's my neighbor vacuuming. But I have to spend my money to facilitate this, basically. I have to spend my money because it's my electricity, it's my data, and I have to use that to participate in a system that I don't want any part of. It's like having an employer demand that I download their apps onto my personal work phone, and then they want to search my work phone to see if I'm using those apps, or my personal phone to see if I'm using those apps correctly. That's ridiculous in my book. So let's continue on here. There were some other points that I wanted to bring this up. See, here's the other thing too. They bring it up in this article. If you already got this ID system, why not use that for taxes, travel, health records, and government benefits? And why not require it for creating social media accounts or logging into age-gated websites? Which basically, this is the death of the internet. You know, everyone says that the internet's kind of already dead because of all the bots or whatever, but this is even more like proof of that. You know, a lot of people are not going to participate in the internet if they have to put names to faces. I mean, how many videos has everybody seen so far of UK police showing up at someone's door saying, well, you put something distressing online, so now you got to come with us and get interrogated. You know, how long until that comes to our shores? Because the thing about the United States is when it comes to technology and it comes to how things happen, we're roughly 10 to 20 years behind. You know, when to draw on my personal experiences, there was, you know, the little chip. Sorry, my nose is itching. You know the little chip that debit cards and credit cards have? We got that about, 15 years after the Europeans got it, and they already had the tap by then. And now we're slowly getting the tap. Like, you know, places like Walmart still doesn't have the tap, even though their card readers are able to use the tap. They have the little RFID stuff in there. They just haven't turned it on yet. And they keep saying they will, but it never happens. And it's funny because they did Apple Pay before they did that. You know, actually, no, I think they just since disabled Apple Pay. Something like that. It's been a while since I've dealt with Walmart, but I shouldn't be name dropping like that. But my point is, though, you know, once it starts, once it gets in, there's no cutting it out. And that's what this is this is everybody's in. And here's the other question, too. Am I, as a tourist, I'm not going to the UK ever, but if I were, hypothetically speaking, if I were to go to the UK, would I be required to have one? And then when I leave, it's still in the government database with all my information. You know, who's to say that I don't get, you know, kind of sucked up in some kind of cyber security attack? You know, this is ridiculous. This is insanity of the highest order. And I hope everybody, well, I know everybody says that they understand this. And, you know, there's the whole, oh, we won't comply thing. But the problem is everybody does understand it. And everybody's going to have to comply. You know, because at the end of the day, they're not going to force people to do it. They're going to force businesses to do it. And then by proxy, people are going to have to do it because in order to conduct commerce, they have to go to the businesses to do the commerce. And if the businesses say, well, you need to have an ID to even walk in the door, you know, I mean, sure, like you may not need a handbag or something, right? But you need food. And that's where you're going to get into this, okay, now I got a problem. Either I eat, which means I have to have a digital ID in order to get into the grocery store, or I don't have that ID, I can't go in the grocery store, and I freaking starve. That's kind of where this is all going. And I don't care what anybody says. That is the next step here. You know, they just have to get the businesses to, and the businesses are going to do it. Make no mistake of it. The businesses are going to do it. You know, and there's always going to be like some kind of, you know, carrot and stick scenario. You know, the carrot's going to be, well, we'll give you tax credits or tax breaks, or hell, at this point, we'll give money, because that's all governments are good for now, is giving money for compliance, and the businesses, they'd be stupid not to take it. So they're going to take it, and they're going to install the hardware and the software to do it. And then all of a sudden you're stuck. I mean, there's even been videos of people going up to like these little gates. I don't know if it was in China. I think it was in China, where they had to put their phone onto the gate. And if the phone did not allow them in, they couldn't get into that part of the city. No, it was facial recognition. Either way, it's tied with the social credit score. Pardon me. That's where all this is going is, let's just say that you forget to do something, like you forget to change your address on the app. Well, now all of a sudden you can't rent apartments. You forget to do some mandatory God knows what. Now all of a sudden, you can't drive a car. You're banned. I mean, that's essentially where all this is going, is it's all going to be online, and it just feels like it's just squeezing in, but yeah, I don't want to say I'm flabbergasted over this, because I did see this coming. I'm mixed emotion right now. I saw this coming, but I'm still stunned that we got to this point. Here's an interesting part that I wanted to read to you. The Guardian columnist Gabby Hinsliff, something like that, imagined other possibilities, though Britons won't have to produce their IDs when stopped on the street under Starmer's plans. A future administration could easily change that. Just imagine how useful ID cards would be in rounding people up for Trump-style mass deportations, especially if the effort was linked to facial recognition technology already in use by the British police, creating a system capable of automatically scanning crowds anywhere from a rush hour tube station, which is the subway, in case you didn't know, to a football match. That's the equivalent of soccer for us, in case you didn't know. And matching faces against immigration databases. Well, when they're coming over by the train, what does it matter anyways? You're coming over by trains or by boats or whatever, and you're sticking them in hotels. What does it freaking matter? I don't know, guys. Like, it just seemed like ever since 2020, life has just sucked. It's continuing to suck, and we're getting up to 2026 now, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I mean, I'm in a way, I'm tired of talking about it, because it's like everyone I talk to knows it's coming. Everybody knows, hey, it's gonna happen at some point. And yet it just seems like, what do you do? What do you do in this scenario? Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for listening to this quick video. I did videos for this week. This is going to hit on Monday. I did videos for this week, but it didn't turn out that well, so we're kind of rushing through this. But hey, I appreciate you being here, and if you like the video, be sure to like it, subscribe, and do all those things. And I hope you have a great day. Bye.